Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. As you can see, this time I'm looking at a Super CD-ROM². Is it squared or is it just a 2? I'm not sure. So this is the model that's got, normally you've got to use different U cards with the system software. I think there's like version 1, version 2, version 3, I think. There might be a version 1 or version 3, I'm not sure. It would be strange to have version 1, no version 2. And then straight to a 3. But you can also get like I think it's an arcade card, and I think that's the only card you need for this. If you've got this model, you get the system card 3 built in, so it'll play Super CD games, it'll play the standard CD games, but it won't play the ones that need the additional RAM that the arcade Pro card, is it a Pro? I think it is, gives you. So I'll need to get a card for that at some point. Pretty pricey actually, those cards. They sell for about £100, so that's going to be later in the year, I think. I don't need that right now. And there's only about, I don't know, 15 games that use that, and perhaps about 10 that make use of the additional RAM if you've got it. That aren't, it's where it's not actually required for. So the problem with this is described as the sound having some issues. I thought it probably needs recapping. And I've just tested it, and I'm convinced that's what it is, because it struggles to read the disc as well, unless it's been warmed up. Now this is the thing with capacitors. I'll point you at the screen now, and I'll just show you this. Start the game. I'll just hit the run button. Now just give that a second, it'll probably pick up the disc. It's taking a while there actually. It's because it's cold, it's been off for a while. And it may load, may not load, depending on whether it's warmed up enough. You hear the sound? I'll turn it up. Totally distorted, cutting out. It's not cutting out, I think that's probably just because that it's starting to load the actual sort of gameplay bit there or something. It should kick back in. Yeah, that's awful. But like I say, coming back to my point there about caps and how you can tell it's caps. If you were to just leave the system, let's say it wouldn't boot, it's not reading discs, yeah, or you're getting this distorted sound, you just leave it powered up, which is what I'll do now. I'll leave this for about 10 minutes, and I'll come back and I'll show you that it'll be okay. So this is after about 5 minutes actually. As you can hear, it's still a bit noisy, crackly, but it's actually a lot better. So I'll leave that another 5 minutes. So it's been on 10 minutes here. I just want to show you, if I hit the run button now, it loads a little bit quicker. Just give it a second, I'll just put the disc in. Yeah, so it loads a little bit quicker, and you'll hear from the sound here now, just after 10 minutes, it's actually, I would say it's noticeably better. So you can still hear a bit of distortion there, but I'm sure right back at the start there was hardly any sound. So yeah, that's a clear indication that's the caps. And obviously it's affects other things as well. It's not just the sounds. Like I say, the load times are affected. You can actually find that when it's first cold, you can't get it to load at all. Just turn that down. Something else I'll just show you quickly here before I start tearing this down. The media is critical as well with these, or certainly with the laser I've got on this one. The one that's in there now is one of these Tau Uden, is it? I think discs. I forget the name of it. I'll put it up there because I can't quite remember the name of it. But you can see it's got like a green tint to it, whereas these Maxell ones, and I've tried Sony ones as well, are more silvery. But this greeny blue reads perfectly. These Maxell ones won't read at all. So that's worth knowing. And of course, like I say, it might be different depending on the laser. Depends whether you've got a duo. It's going to vary from model to model and stuff. Is the point I'm trying to make. But yeah, that is actually working. I don't think there's anything wrong with the system at all. I think the laser's fine. I just think that it just needs a recap. So I think the next thing I'll do is I'll just turn it upside down, show you where the screws and things are. I'll strip it down and see if I can get to the board to have a look at the caps. So I totally lucked out with this system. I have to admit, it was like just under £90. And as you can see, it's in immaculate condition. The label's all fine. That's a bit of dirt just there. There is a little mark there. I think that's dirt, so that should come off. But once it's been cleaned up, that just looks good as new. It really does. It's hardly discoloured or anything. Comes with the original, pass-through power thing there. Now the power supply that came with it, I'll show you in a minute. It's one of those cheap adjustable voltage ones. You know, it's got the right connector. That's good, and it's 12 volts. Now it says 12 volts on here, so that's interesting. If you feed 12 volts in, then it must drop it to around 9. Maybe it does pass the 12 straight through. I don't like the idea of that. Anyway, so I'm not sure I'm going to do about that just yet. I might stick with the power supply that came with it when I'm using the CD add-on. I'll show you later anyway. So just taking the screws out here, I had 3 screws here that the gain bit, same size as the N64, SNES, Mega Drive carts, etc. But they're also, I don't know if you can see that looks like a Torx, you know, it's the one with the pin in the middle, same down here in this corner. So I'm not sure it's got the right screws or whether it had 2 different security screws in there from day one, I don't know. So we'll get those out now and hopefully it should come apart. Well, you wouldn't believe the trouble I had getting that last screw out of the top corner hole there. I'm sure these are not the right screws that were in here, and if they were, they've been swapped around, because if you look at the length of these black ones, they're not as long. So someone's deliberately put those Torx ones in, perhaps to try and stop someone going in it. So these ones, they look like the SNES screws actually, they're identical, I think the same length and everything, so I'll replace the 2 that I've took out, those black ones, and replace them with 2 more of these, so that all, is that 2, 5? Yeah, that's right, so that all 5 are the same type, I think. Post in the comments below if you know more about that. Is it supposed to have this type of, you know, the game bit ones that work on the SNES and N64, or is it supposed to be Torx, or a combination of the 2? But anyway, so now we've done that, we'll take this thing off, and I think the lid, there we go, should come off. What's just fallen out? Oh, it's just a plastic piece off the back there. So you can see this has been previously modded actually, so it's going to be interesting to see how that's been done. But someone has done an RGB mod to this. I would think, you know, you'd like to think that it had been recapped previously, but the signs and symptoms are certainly that it needs recapping. So maybe not. Maybe someone just did the RGB mod, you know, audio video mod, and then that's all. So I'm not sure what's going on here. Is this glue or tape? Looks like a bit of tape. I'll show you. Sorry, off camera as usual. Just down here we've got, well, it looks a bit shiny. Yeah, it looks like a piece of sellotape or something. Some rather strange looking solder contacts there, so I'm not sure what's been going on there. So I'm not sure how this comes out. Just carefully need to lift this out in such a way that we don't pull all the wires off. And obviously there might be some ribbons. Oh yeah, there is. There's one for the buttons, I think. See if we can somehow get this out here. Yeah, I can tilt it this way down here. So you can see that I think the DIN, sorry, maybe up a little bit, the DIN has been rewired to use this RGB thing. There is no amp, it's just a straight pass through. That's interesting. Oh god, I need to be careful down here because these wires are just holding on. Again, someone's used sellotape to hold that on. It's looking like it's on its original caps to me actually. If you look at the caps, sorry, if you look at the caps down there, it looks like it's on its original caps. I don't think those have been changed, those all look factory. So yeah, it's a safe bet that that's probably all it needs, just recapping. Oh, that connector's been glued in. What muppet's done that? I just realised. Yeah, I just realised that connector's been glued in. So yeah, some muppets decided to glue the damn thing in. I guess it's better than drilling holes and things, but still, if you're going to put a connector on it, you need to secure it properly. That's, you know, you just push too hard on that, that's going to come off. Although it looks like it's some pretty sturdy stuff. It's not just hot melt glue. It looks like they've used some epoxy or something to stick that on there. My main concern is because of that now, I can't disconnect this connector and stuff, and I've got these wires here, you know, I think you can just about see this. The wires here, for this, probably for the sound, I would think. Looks like we've got left, right, and ground. You know, there's no, you can't put the lid away from the thing, you can't separate it. So I'm going to have to be careful about how I approach this, I think. So I made a quick diagram of where the 3 wires from the PCB here are going to, and just disconnected it to allow me to separate it. I'm going to get this on the mat in a minute. It shouldn't really be on the carpet because obviously I risk some ESD damage doing it that way. So the next thing I need to do, I think, is get this CD unit off, and it's got these little black plastic clips that I think it's like a plastic piece on the other side that hold it on. So I'll get that off and I'll just show you what it looks like up close. The only thing I can see, all the caps here look alright. All the caps here look alright with the exception of this one, which I'll show you in a minute. There's some leaking down there. but all these ones of this certain brand all look alright. It's just this one here that looks like it's a different brand. That one there might be questionable as well, which looks to be the same make as this one. As I say, those ones are alright, but you could just about see under here there's some SMDs. That one's alright, but there's one or two down there, right underneath the drive, that look like they're well leaked actually. I suspect those are going to be what's causing the problem. I don't think all the caps need replacing on this, and I have read that typically it's the sound part of this that usually needs recapping, and the power supply side as well, and it's only usually just one or two of the caps, not all of them. It depends on the brand, I think. So yeah, I'll get this off, and hopefully should be able to see the board a little bit better. Yeah, so looking at this little PCB here with the Super Macro on, sorry the lighting's awful this time of year, it looks okay. I mean, you've got one or two caps like that don't look straight in terms of alignment, but the solder is totally good. There's no signs of any corrosion whatsoever on this PCB. I'm guessing this is like some sort of mixing board. Just from the location of the thing it's near, you're not going to be able to see it because the focus I'm on Super Macro at the moment, but the little Oki chip on the board there, which I'll show you in a minute, I think it's like an op-amp, so that looks alright. So I think we can just discount this board for the moment, although we might have some high ESR on some of these. Let's have a look at the board. Yeah, so on the main board here, most of these caps look okay to me. Again, there's no signs of corrosion, I don't think. I can't quite remember now on this part. Yeah, they look alright. There's no leakage. But there are one or two places on the board. If I just move over here, I'll show you. These look okay again, I think. I need to spend some time just having a really good look at this. Yeah, these caps down here, these are questionable. I think we've got some corrosion. I don't know how well whether you're going to be able to see it or not. Let's see if we can just get the light onto it. So it's starting to rain here, or hailstone, I think. Yeah, I think we've got some leakage there. I don't know if you can see on that first cap, the electrolytic there. It looks a bit dirty, the contacts look a bit dirty. So I think this row of caps here is probably going to need swapping out. There are some more SMDs here. Sorry, it's very difficult to try and get this on camera. There's one or two around here that might look like they need doing, I'm not sure. We've absolutely definitely got some leakage over here. Again, trying to get the light in the right place is not easy. You see down there, that's the small black one next to the pots. Yeah, we've got some leakage there, so I think I'll probably replace the ones near the heatsink here. But for the most part, I don't see any problems. Right, so I took off this shielding on the underneath. There's quite a few several points. Let's see if I can show you. Zoom in a little bit. You can see around the edges of the board here, it's like 3 down there, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 10 of those to desolder. Now they're pretty, it absorbs a lot of heat, because this absorbs the heat when you're heating up the points on this side of the PCB. So if you ever get that, what I tend to do is use 15 watt iron's not enough on its own. So I'm using my desolder station here, a Weller, but even that is not enough on its own. So it's the case of putting 1 point on, and then use this as well, and then you'll see within a second it just goes completely molten because of the additional heat there. If you're using a better iron than I have, I mean mine's set on to the maximum temperature on my Weller, you probably won't have a problem with it, but that's just a useful bit of information really, I guess, if if you're not experienced at desoldering pieces of shielding and large heat sinks and things, consider using a second iron just to give it a temporary bit of additional heat. So there's still this piece of shielding. I'll probably take that off shortly, but the main reason to get it off was so I could replace these caps here and the ones over here, and then I'll thoroughly inspect the board just to make sure that none of these little SMDs have leaked. But it looks like they haven't. It looks like it seems to be these traditional type electrolytic gear that have leaked. The service mounted ones look fine. They don't always need replacing these, because for example, my Amiga 1200, I've been a bit paranoid because that's got SMD caps on it. Now, when I first got it, inspected the board, and it's mint. There's not even there's just not a mark. It's actually a perfect example of an Amiga 1200 board. And as time's gone on, every sort of 6 months, 12 months, I think better just check the caps on it actually. So I take it to pieces, fully expecting to see 1 or 2 starting to leak, and they're all perfect. There's not a mark. There's no discoloration. There's no signs of any leakage anywhere. And of course, the system behaves perfectly it's a really good model. But the point I'm trying to make is, they don't always leak. You can't just assume that you just need to come on here and replace every single cap. Now, it's probably a good idea, but then again, it's a good idea based on whether some of them have leaked. Say if some of these SMDs had leaked somewhere, you know, say 1 or 2 of them had leaked in different locations on the board, yeah, I'd be swapping out all of the SMD caps. But actually, it looks like none of them have leaked. It just does look like these here have leaked. I've not got schematics for this particular model. I'm not really sure what those are going to be used for. These look like they could be H-bridge drivers or something, because they've got a metal backing, which is like a heatsink type thing, and they're right next to some of the cables for the CD unit there. So I suspect that's probably what those are. Is that why these caps have failed? I don't know. I mean, they're in close proximity to this. It gets warm. The CD unit fits over here as well. That's going to contain the heat. Again, they're going to get warmer. So that could be why those have failed. But 1 or 2 on the power supply section here have failed as well. So I think what I'll do with those is just, when I remove them, clean up the PCB, look at the brand, compare to some of the other ones on there, see if those have leaked. Certainly swap out the ones of the same brand. That's probably a good idea. But right now, let's say I'm going to get this row of caps off here, but also clean the PCB up a little bit in a few places. I did just disconnect the video, you know, the RGB mod. Look at the state of the solder. Now, all I did is just gently heat these, but there's just giant blobs. It's discoloured. It looks grey. It's awful. Someone's not used flux there, so I'm going to get some flux onto there now and clean those contacts up as well. So I've took one cap out. Can you see down there? Look at the pads. Can you see they look black? Here's the cap, and it smells of electrolyte. It smelled of electrolyte while I was heating it up. So yeah, I might see if I can get a closer in on that, more focused later. But yeah, so I'll clean the pads up there now, and continue working my way through that block. If there's any just as bad as that one, I'll show you. But the other ones look okay actually. There's probably the third one along here looks a bit questionable again, but the others look alright. But I'm going to swap them all out anyway. So apologies for the rain again, it's the time of year. You can see I cleaned up the pads on that one there. Still a bit dirty down here, so I'll get some more flux on there and heat it up. Perhaps you can just gently sand it a little bit or something. These ones you can see I've not done any of these. This one over here is particularly bad. So you can see the black stuff there. So I'll clean up all around there. I need to obviously inspect the pins. Can't really see it here, but the pins under this chip here. Just to make sure the corrosion's not started to eat away at anything there. I might need to remove these. I'd rather try and avoid that, but we'll check it. It looks like it's alright actually. I don't think you can just about... So yeah, you probably can't because of lighting. But that's all I'm going to do. These 3 here, they look okay. They're a different manufacturer. There's no leakage. Got nice shiny solder points there. So I think I'm going to leave those there. It seems to be one of these certain manufacturer things, you know, it's like a certain batch from a certain manufacturer. So I'll show you those in a minute and we'll measure them and stuff. But yeah, they all smell of electrolyte, and you can see clearly that it has leaked around there. So anyway, I'll clean them up and put some new ones in and show you. So I start putting them back on here, as you can see, and obviously I cleaned up the pads there. All it really needed was a bit of IPA to clean up the pads, and then just let some bit of flux heat with some solder braid to suck up the flux, and they've come out really clean. And there was a bit of corrosion on a little trace. I can't really point to it because I can't get my finger on camera. So there you go. I've replaced all 4 of those caps there. Nice, really clean solder points. No flux or anything left on the board. No corrosion. As you can see, soldered okay underneath as well. One thing I'll point out is I had trouble with the 22 microfarad, this one here. You can just about see there's very, where's it gone? There. There's very little solder on there, on this side, because the pad actually just came off with the, you know, the corrosion. That one was really bad. Couldn't solder from the side. I had to get loads of flux onto it and wipe it off with IPA first to get rid of the electrolyte, and then get some flux on it and heat it. But the solder was just not melting at all. It took ages. And then after I'd removed the cap, I noticed there was barely a pad left on there, so I think it had eaten through on this side of the board, but there's no connections on this side, no traces. So I just made sure that when I put it over on this side here, that I've inspected from both sides, probably a bit too far away though for you to see, just to make sure the solder's flowed as you can see it has, and if it hasn't, just get a bit of flux on there and heat it from this side. But that's it. Those 4 are good. These 3 are fine. all the other SMD caps on here do look fine. I don't see any signs of leakage. So it's just this area now. So I'm going to focus on this area, remove the caps around here and replace those, I think. And then I might just reassemble it and test it to see if the problems have gone away. Because I think that the sound problem, it seems to be related to the CD audio, and you know, it's not always reading very well when you first power it on, but when it's been on for 10 minutes it then reads right as rain, like there's nothing wrong with it. So it could have been these caps here. It could also be the supply to the audio section as well. So I'm thinking that one of the voltages down here might be being affected by these leaking caps. Of course, it could be, you know, the SMDs, and it could be that little PCB, you know, the PCB that plugs in here. But they do look fine. You know, usually with that type of cap, you do see them leaking. But anyway, time will tell. I might have to revisit this in a later video, but like I say, right for now, I just want to sort these out and see if that solves it. Yeah, so it's no surprise that actually the one I've just took off is also, sorry, it's not going to focus, is it? It's silver as well. It's got the silver band here. Now, all the ones that are good on the power supply section and the board don't have this silver band, you know, silver print. So it seems to be the same manufacturer. It's one particular manufacturer where they've all failed. All the others are okay. There's one more of these. I've checked that's leaking as well, so I'll swap that out. So you can see where I've just taken that cap from there. So look at the pads, really dirty. So I've cleaned that up. There's one more of that cap type down here. So I've got some IPA on there, that cleaned it up nicely. Then just got some solder and flux and used some desolder braid to remove the solder, and it looks nice and tidy. So we'll get a new cap on there and I'll swap out that final one. So whilst we're here, I've took off the shielding there that covers the, you know, most of the digital components and things. You can see some oaky RAM down there. It looks like DRAM, I think. So we've got a couple of chips there. There's a Sanyo chip. I can't see what that is. Is that RAM or ROM? Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell. Probably a RAM, I would think. Got some more Sony chips down here. More memory. Got an NEC chip down here. I think that's a ROM. Yeah, I suspect that's a ROM. That's going to contain the BIOS, you know, the boot menu. Normally you'd stick a Hue card in for that on the you know, on the standard CD-ROM², and then just some buffers, I think, down there. 74 logic, but lots of caps again. So I'll check all these caps, but also super cap down there. That will need swapping out. So I'll have to order one of those. I might do that later. I might not cover it in this video, but I'll check the size of that and order one of those. But all the other caps under here look okay, actually. There's no signs of leakage again. So other than ordering a cap to replace that, I think I'll just stick the shielding back on for the moment. I've got some 330 microfarad caps to swap out yet, but actually I think I've solved it just by replacing the caps I've done so far. All the SMD ones, as I've shown, are okay. Sounds fine. So I ran it last night actually for a few hours, just left it on, and it was okay up until a point. After being on for about an hour and a half, it started playing up where it wouldn't read the disc. Now I powered it off and on, same problem, wouldn't read a disc. I thought, I wonder if, you know, we've still got 3 caps on here that are not replaced. I've got 330 microfarad caps there. All the others I'm sure are okay. So whether that's got a bearing or not, I don't know, but I left it switched off for 20 minutes, switched it back on, and it was fine again. And it was fine for another hour and a half until it warmed up again. So, and it seemed to be, at that point I actually realised it seemed to be related to the mechanism. I put an audio CD in and I scanned right to the end of the disc, right to the beginning of the disc, and then it was alright. So I think it's gunk. I think, you know, we're getting some gunk, you can see on the rail here, old grease and stuff. So I'm going to lubricate, you know, clean off all this old grease, put some new grease on there and get a bit of oil where it's required, and give it a retry. So my 330 microfarad caps have arrived. You can just about see there where I've removed one and cleaned it up. The pads look nice and shiny and, you know, good as new, but they were black. And as I took that cap, both the 330s, I swapped one down here, and as soon as I took this one off here, I could smell, you know, really strong fish, you know, really sort of pungent fish smell. So yeah, and obviously, like I said, they were really corroded. There's this one here still to do. I think there's a 220. That's a different manufacturer. I've checked the pins on that, as you can see, they're good as new. So those dark blue ones seem okay. I think there's 4 or 5 of those caps on the board, and they all work fine. I've took 1 or 2 off just to check them, but they're fine. So I'll get that 330 off, and I'll show you the pads on that one, because I think that one's a bit corroded as well, the same as the other 2 were. And as you can see, I've also been marking these with a little red mark. All the ones I did under the CD unit here, I've marked as well. So any that I've swapped out, I've marked. But predominantly, it's all the ones around the PSU here, apart from that 220 and this one here. And that's the same type that's under the, here under the shielding on the digital side, and they're all a different manufacturer again, and they're all good as new, no issues there at all. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I've not had to replace all these. I may well need to come back in this in future and replace these SMD caps, but I don't think so. Not in the short term anyway, maybe in the distant future. So there you go, you can see I've took the last cap off, and you can see the pads are corroded, and again, fishy smell when removing it. So it's just a case of wiping them with some IPA, and that's it. It comes up really, really super clean. Just clean the whole area all around there. So after cleaning up with IPA there, I've also used some flux anti-solder braid. As you can see, the pads are nice and clean there now. And obviously inspect the local area as well. You can see some little SMD components and things down there, and some vias. It's important you check all those. If you've got any corroded vias, those might need patching up or clean up, etc. So at some point that super cap's going to need swapping out. Now I've got one on order, it's not arrived yet. I've inspected around it and it all looks perfect around the area, so to be honest, just now I'm not going to swap it out. It will mean though that I'm going to need to take the shielding back off again in order to get to that cap to replace it in future. So yeah, accepted that's going to be a bit of a pain, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'd just like to check on the status of some of these, the SMD caps, because none of those SMD caps have been replaced. They just don't need replacing. So you can see in somewhere here all the ones with the red marks on the things that I've swapped out. Not too many really. What's that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it looks like 11 caps I had to replace there. Now I've been using this without the 330s. I left the faulty 330s in. I've been using it for a few days, no problems, dead stable, everything working, dead reliable. But those three 330 caps were leaking, so they didn't need to replace them. Let's say all the others are all right. So the next thing I'm going to do is get the shielding back on and reassemble it. So here's a quick update just as I reassemble it here. As you can see, I've taped down the wires here. Really, they should be screened. They should have like a separate shield for each wire, really, to get the best out of RGB. But it should be all right. I mean, this is shielded, so they're quite close to that, anyways. But I've just taped them down to hold it down. Built another one of those little amplifier boards there, as per when I did the original PC Engine. Amplify RGB, yes, that's the same board. I just had the same components, because I bought multiple components at the same time, and I think it was a minimum of 3 boards, so I had the spare board. And then I've just chopped the wires, obviously, and just passed them through. So I've got the red, green, blue. The orange is 5 volts. I haven't got the jumper set there, as per in my last video, as I described at the end. It's easy just to bridge it, pass the 5 volts straight across, and then have a resistor at the SCART end. And obviously there's composite here as well. I've replaced that clear piece of sellotape down there and cleaned up the PCB on both sides because it was a real mess, so that's nice and tidy. The reason there's a piece of tape there, or they had a piece of sellotape there, I think it's because the connector, the DIN, the way it's mounted on the inside of the case, it could short somewhere on one, well, perhaps on this side, not on the other side, but I'll put a piece of tape that just wraps on both sides just over that part where the original DIN would have been. But so it should just be a case now of just wiring up these 7 or so connections, the left, right, composite, RGB, +5, ground, and then it should, in theory, work. I'm going to wire it the same as I did my previous one, so that's another change to this in the way that I'm wiring it. I might just put some hot glue, I think, on this PCB, just on the edge there, just to support it, but it's not going to move, actually, once it's together. So just reassembling it now. This piece of plastic could drive you nuts trying to understand where it goes. It's not wide enough, because of the plastic notch there, to fit around that. It actually goes on the underside of here. I think it goes that way up, like that, I think. It fits into that recess, yeah, it goes under the little plastic gap there, and then just fits like that with a bit of shielding on top of it, so that it looks like that there. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I don't know why it isn't just moulded on. I guess it's to accommodate this bit of extra shielding that goes underneath it. But anyways, yeah, it's just a case of just getting the lid on now, put the screws on, clean it up and test it. So all reassembled there, cleaned up. I couldn't get that mark off there. I think it's the epoxy from when they did the socket. The epoxy on the inside, and then someone's got a bit of epoxy just there. You can't really see it unless you get it in the right light. You can see it from this angle, I think. But yeah, that's not bad actually. It's in pretty good condition. The print's all good condition. It's not that faded. So pointing at the screen here, switch this on. Now the one thing I'm not sure about is whether the CD has been tinkered with. Sorry, cattail passing the camera there. So I've hit start. Let's just look at a second. It takes about 3 or 4 seconds and then the screen goes black. So I'd appreciate the comments below if you could let me know about the timings, you know, loads times and things. Is that normal? Just turn that up a bit. As you can see with the RGB mod there, that's absolutely amazing. It's much brighter and clearer. Just like it was with the NEC OE2 when I modified that with the RGB mod there. So it does need that. I think the sound's amplified on these systems because it is wired to go straight out of the DIN, you know, the standard DIN that these are configured with. So I don't think I need an audio amplifier, it seems loud enough. It's perhaps just a bit of, sometimes when you got a white screen you get a bit of a background hiss that I don't notice when I use the NEC OE2. So I'm not sure. Maybe the caps need replacing on that part on the board, you know, for the sound output, but I don't think so. All the SMD caps all look good as new. You know, telltale sign with those SMD caps is not only do you can see where it's leaked on the board, but also the solder points change colour. You know, it's shiny and silver. It's clear that something's, you know, interfering with them. But as you can see in here, it's working fine. The sound's perfect. Colours are nice. It's just like I say, it's the CD thing. I don't know whether someone's messed with the pots previously. The first thing I did do is mark them, and I recommend doing that. You know, draw a little line with a permanent marker down the side of every pot, even though you're not planning on changing them. Just because, you know, when you're messing around with the board and stuff, you can quite easily just nudge one or something. And it's just a good thing to do, really. But looking at, it's probably three of the pots are almost wound to the extreme. You know, they're not sort of in the middle. And typically these things, the way they're configured from the factory, they sort of set them to the middle and then they just tweak slightly one way or the other. Well, not always, but so I don't really know. And there's no service manual for the CD version of this system that I can find online anyway. There must be one somewhere. So again, if you know the service manual for this, please let me know, because I'd like to do what Retro Game Mods did. You know, the Swedish guy there that's the Amiga expert with his Amiga, I think it's a CD-32 or something, where he configured it and calibrated it. It's a really good video actually. I'll post a link to that video below if you want to check that out. It's a good video to watch with regards to understanding how these laser-based systems, you know, CD-based systems work, and what's required to adjust them. It's not as easy as just messing around the pots really. You've got to get a scope on there and do it properly. So I'd like to try and do that for this if it's required. I'm not sure. It's like I say, I do not know whether someone's tinkered with it or not. It seems okay, but it's like you get a little pause there where it starts. It's like that in one or two of the games where, you know, say for instance you change levels or it's about to load the next scene, you just get a short pause for about 2 seconds and then it's okay, and I'm like, well, is that normal or not? It's hard to tell. Probably a lot of the videos on YouTube have been done on emulators where the CD loading part of it has been sped up, you know, it's optimised because it's in an emulator, it's not really simulating the entire load time. I think one of the most difficult parts of this was, I would say, is the shielding. Shielding can be quite hard to get into the solder because it absorbs an awful lot of heat. And what I did with that and what I would recommend is using 2 solder irons. I use my 15 watts, which is not enough on its own, but then set my desoldering station to 450. And again, the desoldering station is not enough on its own. It almost is. You can heat it for a second and then it starts to become molten, but as you move the tip around, it starts to cool down straight away at the other end of the connection you're trying to melt. But as soon as you just touch the 15 watt iron on there at the same time, so there's a pause, watch. Is that normal? So just a bit of Castlevania here, just tested it for a few hours following, you know, reassembling and stuff, and it's rock solid. It's just the sync between tracks thing. I'm not sure about whether it's, you know, the timing's right there. Is it normal to set a couple of seconds? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.